pleasing one because it just shows you everything going up and starting with revenue of nothing and ending up with revenue of 25 million, which is for us something we're happy with in terms of the progress. The bottom chart is showing you the annual growth, the growth in our revenue each year as a business. And you can see in the 1990s, we're growing very strongly. You can see the impact of our tractor magazine, where we had 70% growth one year and over 60% the next year, where we really saw strong improvements in sales. And then we had a steady period of growth in the later 90s. And then I mentioned a period of licensing where we took on a load of products, mostly Classic Car Weekly coming into effect here, really delivering some growth. And it wasn't until 2012 that we had our first year of decline, and actually we started seeing maybe a bit more challenges that you see that had been prevalent in the industry for some time. The 2010s, as I called them here, we entered a new phase as a business, and we were still looking at licenses, but they were coming to an end, and we're moving more into acquisitions and more into the diversifying into new areas. In terms of acquisitions, I was quite impressed actually when I put these all up together. These are some of the brands that we've acquired in the last 10 years. And the relevance of talking about Classic Car Weekly and Tractor and Machinery is without the strength of those titles, we wouldn't have had the capital or the ability to buy any of these products. So we've been in a very fortunate position to be able to have a profitability within the business in order to take advantage of any restructurings and changes of direction that may have happened elsewhere and to take on new titles. And most of the magazines we've taken on have fitted well into our business in categories we work in, and sometimes we jump out of our comfort zone and try something new, and normally it works. It doesn't always work, but that's how we've basically grown in the last 10 years. Now, this chart may be familiar to a lot of people in the UK. This is showing you the industry in the UK in terms of positive growth at the beginning of the 2000s, but continual shrinkage in terms of the news trade sales. So that's the environment that we've been trading under. You can see that around about 2005 was when the deterioration started, and it's been pretty strong up to sort of 10% decline in copy sales and maybe roughly 6% per year since 2008. For Kelsey, we were a little bit lucky because being a very specialist publisher in the early years, we were slightly immune to that. And looking at the period from 2005 to 2009, when the industry is starting to go into decline, this chart is showing you copy sales, and that's showing you the RSV, the sales value at retail. And you've got 5 years of decline, whereas at Kelsey we were still growing our sales because Tractor and Machinery was firing on all cylinders, as tractors should do. And Classic Car Weekly was performing really well as well. So we were actually benefiting at the time when the industry was under pressure and actually paper prices were declining, print prices were declining, responding to the industry. So we were very fortunate to take advantage of lower costs and higher sales. And again, that allowed us to make more investments and to grow our business. This might be a little bit cynical in terms of the last 10 years. We've been in a bit of a hamster wheel or a wheel of fortune where it's been hard. We've had years where the business has shrunk. We've been working really hard to try and maintain profitability. We borrow money, we buy some magazines, we reduce the costs, we spin things off, we repay a bit of debt, we close something if it's losing money, the business shrinks. We borrow some money and we go round and round. And actually it's worked as a growth strategy. I've shown you a lot of the titles we've bought, but looking forward, we have to look at the sustainability of our brands and see where we can grow and how we can make the most out of things. So we are pushing ahead with bookazines, we are developing in events, and we are beginning to see some digital actually making a a worthwhile contribution to the business and being very important for some of our brands. In terms of bookazines, the point to note, I suppose, we looked at how many products do we produce a year, and we produce onto the newsstands in the UK, and mostly for export as well, more than 1,000 products a year, and these are nearly all magazines, issues of magazines, and so all that content, all that archive of content is constantly being growing and building up, that puts us in joint third place with immediate media in the UK in terms of the number of products produced, and so gives us a great, obviously, archive to draw upon in terms of launching and developing bookazines, which work both in the UK and internationally. So it's an exciting area we are developing in. In terms of export, since we're here at an export conference, I ought to perhaps put some relevance on that. Psychologist is our biggest export title. It's our biggest title in the UK as well. And I thought it would be interesting to see how it's performed in the export market compared to the UK. And the lessons that perhaps this draws. Because actually export is quite challenging, you know, because you've got to try and get a foreign language title in many ways to sell in a very crowded newsstand in different countries around the world. But with this brand in particular, we've seen good performance, and we've seen it outperforming sales in the UK. And by the way, Psychologist has performed well in the UK. It's a very strong and resilient brand. So coming here is important for us. We recognise the need to focus on export. It's an important part of our sales. It's a good opportunity for our bookazines and other areas of the business. And so obviously something we're going to continue to focus on. So what have we learned in 30 years? Well, I say focus on your strengths and explore all opportunities. We've always been in the motoring category, and we've developed into tractors and machinery, but we've explored areas outside of that, and I think you've got to be open-minded, but weigh up the risks. Understand your audience and understand what they want. It's all about the audience, isn't it? Now, in some ways, we talk about our audience, and the audience, I can't remember who was presenting yesterday and saying that the audience is the reader, and there was a load of cheers. Of course the audience is the reader, but we've got 25% of our revenue coming from advertisers as well, so we need to be mindful of what they want. And advertisers are asking us to connect with through the digital means as well. So there is an important area to develop online, and it doesn't mean you can't also grow copy sales. Some of the marketing we do to our online audiences is great for raising brand awareness, selling bookazines, selling subscriptions, and obviously if people don't subscribe, well, they're going to buy copies on the newsstands as well. So we do a lot of contact there. Don't expect an easy ride. I mean, we all know that it's a very challenging industry. We're battling revenue declines in many areas.